Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Data Sovereignty Show. This is our fourth episode in our series, and really pleased to have everybody here with us today. And I have a very special guest for today's show. But first, I'd like to just welcome everyone to our series about conversations on data sovereignty with thought leaders across the technology space, as well as innovators and creators and legislators on the current data paradigm and what it means to have data sovereignty today, and where it's going and what's possible and what outcomes can best serve humanity. These are the things that are most important to us. So today we're talking about data sovereignty and this new thing that everyone's been talking about called the Metaverse. Obviously, you've probably heard about Facebook's name change to Meta, and there's been a lot of discussions. It seems like the word meta has been on the tips of everyone's tongues for the last several months. And so I'm really thrilled today to have Alberto Rosas with us. Alberto is the co-CEO of Gamium, which is a super cool Web3 company working on the metaverse technology. My name is Robert Grant, and I'm the CEO and co-founder of Crown Sterling, a company that has made personal data sovereignty our mission. And Alberto has an engineering and mathematical background, so it's always great to meet another person who likes math like I do. And he's been involved in crypto in the whole category since 2016. And Alberto is experienced as a software engineer, a machine learning researcher, and also as a blockchain developer. So really thrilled to have you with us today, Alberto. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Robert. I'm very excited to be here. Actually, and I have a question for you.
Sure.
Yeah. So I was reading all your success and everything in life. So I asked myself, why do you care so much about data? Actually,
why do
data
I care so much
privacy.
about data? Well, I think that to be quite frank with you, I think that the next evolution of mankind is going to require a different look at how we, look at our data. I believe that data becomes an extension of who we are as individuals. And so probably for the last few hundred years, that didn't matter so much. But now that we start confronting new issues like cloning technologies, we start confronting new issues where, I can take a swab from you, or I can take your saliva and possibly even recreate you. So that means we probably need to NFT ourselves to ensure that we are who we say we are. And I think that's a really important aspect. We have proof of work and proof of stake concepts. I think the next concept will be proof of self. And I believe that that the whole world's economy is changing rapidly, and that NFTs as a platform of data, which is already the world's most valuable asset, is going to provide the opportunity for great things. I think it's the best chance we have probably at having a sustainable, universal basic income. And I also believe that it's probably got the most risk for being a dystopian nightmare for humanity as well. So as things go really great, things must also go really poorly. And all new technologies have that sort of double-edged sword associated with them. So I believe the next frontier of human endeavors and technology and everything is so exciting from the perspective that we're now living in an economy that is transitioning away from mediators and intermediaries as making money and garnering value towards more of a liquid barter exchange for creativity and for innovation. Whereas the 20th century was about the intermediaries, I think the 21st century is largely going to be about the creators and innovators, people that create and make things. I think IP is going to all change as a result of this type of technology. I believe that that all of us today, the most valuable asset we will have will be our data. And it is so fundamental to who the future human being is, and not only important for Metaverse as a concept, but I think it's going to be, important for this mixed reality that we're already kind of moving towards very rapidly. Does that answer your question?
It makes totally sense. Yeah. Like I'm kind of also kind of a very data privacy guy. That I know very well what data, what can be made with data, because I work as a AI researcher before. So I develop algorithms actually to extract patterns from data, and have meaningful actions depending on the data, and have all this kind of functionality depending on the data, of the input data. So I know the potential and the technology that is behind what you can build with this kind of data from people, data from interaction, data from everything. So
Hmm.
we need to take care of people's data for sure, because it's a, as you said, it's a double sword technology, and you need to be careful what kind of data you're trading, or what kind of data is publicly available for companies, for actors to experiment and extract this kind of models of the data, because these kind of good models in bad people's hands is dangerous for society in general. So we need to take care, have good standards of how the data is stored, what kind of mechanisms do we use, and just making sure data privacy, is a human right.
Yeah,
So
yeah. It's a very important point you raised, because on our blockchain at Crown Sterling, the very first Genesis block, we determined that we made this statement as that Genesis block, which is that we believe that data is the intangible personal property of the original producer of that data. So therefore, it's protected by the United States Constitution, as well as all of the other bills of rights and human rights charters that exist for the European Union and for the United Nations and literally all over the world. We found that actually privacy is difficult to protect, but ownership is an angle that can be protected. And so the way that you can ensure privacy is through the ownership. So this is a very important aspect for us. We believe that protecting freedom of speech is also fundamental to this. We live in a world now where we have, fake news all over the place, and fake news is really just narratives that we're providing to ourselves and others that are kind of like our own propaganda of our own conditioning biases. So as the world is going through this rapid pace of transition and change, if we're not careful, we'll all be subjected to a high degree of propaganda. Now, that propaganda we're already seeing. I myself have experienced censorship on social media. The only solution is to actually allow for true free speech, we believe. So we made that our First Amendment to our, data rights, our data bill of rights that we put into our Genesis block and blockchain. So we fundamentally believe in this, and we've created technologies in order to help companies be able to create encryptions and compressions of data and technologies so that it can be stored in a decentralized way and entirely under your control as original producers of that data. That includes even all things like eventually, like your geolocation, as well as your search history, your purchase history, and we've made it with quantum resistant encryption so that at least for the next several, probably decades, we'll be able to have a really truly safe, and secure method of communication. And I think this is going to stem all the way through and should form the basis. Quantum resistant encryption and mathematical compression technologies like we have should form the basis of all of Web 3.0 and for any metaverse or gaming technologies that come in that. And that's where I like to kind of turn the discussion now. So tell me about Gamium and what your vision behind it was, and how this fits, and how do you feel about this whole concept of metaverses and mixed reality?
sure. So at the end, we saw a need that current social platforms are very bad for society in general. So we have Instagram and we have TikTok and everything. So I feel there is a lot of wasted hours for society in this kind of platform. They are only optimizing dopamine hits for their users, and that's pretty bad because at the end, users have to do things that extract value for society in general. And I feel these platforms are very wrong. Like the function they are optimizing for maintaining their users on the platform is very bad. They are optimizing for retention and for increasing their ad business model.
Hmm.
So that's kind of wrong. And because we know technology, we knew that implementing Web3, implementing a native economic layer to this kind of social platform, we can improve a lot this kind of business models, and not relying on just showing the user dopamine hit content and expecting them to be there on the platform for a long time. So we began working on this concept of the metaverse before Zuckerberg announced it, and we began working very hard. We put together a dream team, and we just started working, iterating, and just asking ourselves what is the most important technology we can develop on the metaverse as a foundation of the metaverse or Web3. And after this kind of brainstorming, iterating, and everything, we decide, okay, we just have to work on a digital identity. That is one of the, actually, a decentralized digital identity that we believe is kind of the most revolutionary technologies that will come in the next few years. And also working on a platform that we call a decentralized social metaverse. So we are building a 3D environment where people can create whatever they want, they can monetize actually and be whoever they want. So we are creating this infrastructure, we are creating the technology behind, and expecting this to be kind of a amazing technology for builders to create whatever they want.
Yeah, no, I've seen your stuff. It's really beautifully architected. Looks fantastic. So, what do you think the major rate limiting factors on the growth of your technology is? You know, is it operational? Is it financial? Is it technological? You know, are there limitations from a technological perspective, given that it's a Web3 environment as well as sort of like decentralized, that sort of will either aid or potentially limit the pace of innovation of technologies and companies like Gamium?
So, in order to have a full metaverse, we need some technological innovation going on already, but I think it will be solved in 3, 5 years. Facebook, well, Meta is doing a lot of innovation in that field, in AI, with robotics, like having feelings, VR, everything. So, we'll have a full metaverse in the next 3, 10 years for sure, in the technical side. What I feel is going to be most difficult is user adoption at the end. So we know that this younger generation is going to be like very comfortable on the metaverse and with this kind of new technologies, but I don't know what is the best way to onboard this kind of plus 35 years old people. So I mean, we have seen, for example, the Oculus Quest of Facebook, that they are onboarding a lot of kind of fitness user with their apps and everything. So maybe that's one good way, to have kind of applications that these kind of people want to use on the metaverse, and then they can begin exploring other kind of financial application or other kind of application inside the metaverse. So pretty much, I'm still figuring out the best way to this kind of mass adoption, but it's going to be here for sure. In the next 3, 10 years, we're going to have kind of fully working metaverse with a lot of people and a lot of interaction, a lot of value being just inside the metaverse. A lot of things are going to get very crazy in the coming years.
So what are the major, just for our viewers, what are the major technological obstacles that companies like Meta are trying to address so that we can have this fully functioning metaverse as you just mentioned?
One of the hard things to do is scalability. You have to design a system in which you cannot have let's say 50,000 user on the same server running and doing requests to the server and expecting an answer with the client. So in this case, we will need to figure it out the best scalability solution. Maybe we have to separate users with this, they're kind of the same kind of people inside the same space. You are not be able to see like 50,000 people in the same room. Like there is no way. So at the end, the scalability is one issue. Having the best scalability systems. Also, we need to figure it out. I believe if we want to have more immersive experience with virtual reality, we need this kind of better UX for people to really use virtual reality to move on the metaverse and everything. Facebook is doing great efforts there, but I believe technology has to be even more easy to use and more accessible to everybody. And yeah, pretty much, I think that's the two main points I'm most worried about. But for sure, there is 100 more issues to solve. For example, how do you build a decentralized system inside the metaverse, or
Yeah.
how do you create an economic system that is stable and inside the metaverse? How do you create this job economy? How do you create security inside the interaction between humans? For example, we have seen we we saw a lot of banning of accounts on the social media, banning from
Yeah.
Twitter, banning from
Hmm.
Instagram, a lot of inappropriate content as well. So that for sure is going to happen on the metaverse, and we need some kind of mechanism to avoid that. And it is tough because to avoid this kind of mechanism, you need some kind of surveillance, and you need automatic models to detect this kind of inappropriate content, let's say, So this kind of security and privacy is going to be also a little bit hard to configure, to design. I mean, there is a lot of challenge here in terms of not only technology, but in society in general, how we design these systems, uh, what kind of rules do we put to these systems. So we will see, I think, a lot of ethical challenge coming in the way as well.
Yeah. Yeah. I was very interested to see this case of this woman who basically had a very negative experience with just trying out a game, and it was like you know it was definitely on the negative side for kind of like behavior of some of the other people that were in the metaverse with her, and so it's already started to change some of the policies, and I think that's always going to be the case. Whenever you have something that goes wrong, we tend to have laws. We get more and more laws whenever something goes wrong, right? That's what happens whenever there's a mistake or there's an accident or something goes badly, like in the airline industry, for example. If a plane crashes and it ends up with an airplane that had some sort of failed mechanism on it, then there are a number of new regulations that generally get formed around that, right? And this is fine because it helps to address it so that we mitigate the risk so that it doesn't happen again, right?
Mhm.
But then again, governments tend to get, because of this, and laws, the number of laws tend to get bigger and bigger. They don't generally get smaller and smaller, which can also start to really impede, the innovation. And the people that were the creators were probably thinking the whole time, look, we never intended for it to be used this way, right? In this negative sense. And so, how do you face those challenges like that as an inventor and creator? How do you look at, this question of, business ethics, I suppose, and build it in? Obviously, you can't account for everything because you don't know everything that could possibly happen in the future. But how do you approach these types of questions?
I think at the end, with this kind of complex technologies that are emerging, the people who are designing these technologies have to have very strong ethics because always this technology is going way faster than the regulations. And we have seen that in crypto. Like we are waiting regulation from crypto for a long time ago. But what happens? People who are doing regulation, uh, they don't. They don't catch up, like they don't. There is no way they know technological. They know the technology enough to kind of write this kind of regulation. And when you understand the technology, then you are 10 years away, from the real technology. So how it's evolving and everything. And we have seen that on the crypto space. So with
Oh yeah.
NFTs, with everything. So we don't have any clear regulation about that. In the metaverse, it's going to happen the same. So uh, a lot of companies will develop products, will develop whatever they want, actually, and maybe we don't have any clear regulation about what they develop until 10 years later. So at the end, I believe it's going to be for the creators' ethic to have a very strong ethic and design products, services that try to avoid that it's going to hurt someone in the future, or at the end developing products or creating products thinking about, okay, so this is good for society in general.
Hmm.
I don't know, like things about, for sure we need regulations, That's one of the things I believe actually Europe and the US and all the countries except China has very bad. That is, they have very slow feedback on the system. So the regulation are always arriving late for this kind of technology. Instead, China, for example, they are regulating constantly the technologies they have there, so they can adapt better and make these kind of decisions better. So I believe at the end is question of how these kind of countries can regulate these technologies faster, because
Yeah.
we need regulation for sure, but we need a system to regulate it faster, because if not, we are 10 years away on crypto, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. No, no, that's absolutely right. I mean, I think the world seems to be going two directions. One is very decentralized, and the other one is very centralized, right? Fiat nations are seemingly wanting to become more and more centralized and authoritarian in their control. I think we've seen this with the pandemic, and particularly what's happening in Canada right now and several other countries. And China is probably looked upon as an example because they can move so quickly in dealing with something like the pandemic. But the challenge with that is that individual rights and freedoms can be lost very quickly, and then
Mm.
you end up in like Handmaid's Tale dystopia as well. And that's one aspect of it. The other aspect of it, decentralized, and I'll say this, being a CEO in a blockchain space, I have to say the industry in general is very poorly organized. I just got back from the conference, the ETH conference, which was fine, but it was incredibly disorganized. Everything about it was disorganized. And maybe that's just me coming from other industries and working in other fields where, I'm used to a certain level of organization. Whereas in the blockchain space, it's just not fully established yet. And that's the downside. I met up with a Swiss VC when I was in Denver for the conference. And I said, how's the conference going for you? He goes, decentralized can mean disorganized sometimes. And I think, but it also means organic. So there's an aspect of it also that allows it to grow very rapidly, where I see new green shoots of innovation coming out on bridging technology, for example, that didn't exist only a few months ago. Now companies exist for that. Or if you want to dramatically expand the number of your node validators, you can do that now with partnership with companies that didn't
Mhm.
exist before. And it all had to be very organic. So all of these things have sort of like this plus and minus associated with it, right? Everything does. But as we kind of look at the pace of this innovation in the field, how important do you think it's going to be to safeguard and set up some rules of the road, right? On as relates to data and where the data will go? Because I can see a day, I'm developing a technology right now, which is an implant that goes inside your eye. That's an intraocular lens used for cataract surgery that will also have on it. It's going to be used to treat profound blindness for patients that suffer from blindness and loss of central vision because of age-related macular degeneration. But it's also going to end up with all the same functionality that your iPhone has. And it won't be very long before people say, hey, I want to use that for my virtual reality, right? Where it's inside their eye. So as I look at these things, I could see a day in the future where all my thoughts, and not my thoughts necessarily, but my experiences and memories could all be recorded, right? Via some sort of device. I mean, like Facebook has these glasses now to record all of your life stuff, even sunglasses too. And I could see a day where, someone may decide, hey, I want to pass on my memories and experiences to my children. But then does that get NFT'd? How is it secured? How do I make sure that what my children are getting is not corrupted, right? For some sort of propaganda, dystopian nightmare as well, for somebody's agenda. These are all things that have to be kind of thought through, but the pace of innovation is happening so quickly right now. How do we ensure and set the ground level sort of rules of the road for data sovereignty and data control and ownership?
Yes. So at the end, you said something very interesting. That is, like, you have pros and cons between centralized and decentralized systems. Okay, so I'm not like 100% sure which at the end system is best. For sure, For example, if you have a centralized system, it's more easy to organize, more easy to control, and more easy to reach some goal. If you have a decentralized system, maybe you have more innovation coming, but also it's difficult to attach all this innovation and make it happen after. So I don't know, maybe it's a combination of both that we need to have in order to have an optimal system that optimize innovation and optimize value creation. But we will figure it out, I believe, at the end. The thing about data, I believe a lot of companies are taking the approach right now, like you have the European Union that is coming like very aggressive with the data law and GDPR and everything.
Mm-hmm.
So they are taking more care about data because they don't want this kind of economic sanctions into their companies, and they don't want, this kind of bad reputation that we are seeing with this kind of data companies. So they are taking more careful, and I believe because of that, like companies are willing to tend more kind of privacy. We have seen, I believe, Meta, they want to do kind of a change, and they want to be like more private. They want to have more interoperability with data. They want to embrace this kind of public blockchains technology. So I believe the next coming years is going to be more on privacy. And when companies are designing systems for the data, they are actually thinking about privacy. So that's important because 20 years ago, no one was thinking about privacy. And I believe all these companies will design some kind of privacy tools. For example, you have WhatsApp, you have Telegram that is end-to-end encrypted right now. So, that's a big, actually good innovation for everyone to have all this conversation encrypted between this peer-to-peer network. So I believe the future is, okay, let's make private what can be made private, and let's try to collect only the data that is necessary for the business model, for example.
So the question is the platform, for example, for your metaverse, will your platform be owned, or is it going to be decentralized?
Mm-hmm. So, for example, in our case, we're developing these two technologies. One is the decentralized digital identity. In this case, is totally decentralized. So you are a human that has an avatar, and this avatar has data. It has an anatomy, it has off-chain data, and it has on-chain data. So all this data is encrypted, actually using, for example, the asymmetric keys of the users. But as well, you can make a lot of claims regarding what a user has or not has. For example, University of Toronto, let's say they want to give a claim that you have a marketing degree in University of Toronto. They can make that. They can kind of issue this claim through a smart contract, and they can give it to you. So you have this data, and this data can be private, actually, and you can share it with whoever you want. Actually, with application, you may share it with another avatar. You will share it with whoever you want. So at the end, you have the power to share your private data to whoever you want. Even you can make it public for everyone to see it. So we're designing this kind of platform where the user really has the control of their data, and it can join all the digital fingerprints in one place, that is the avatar, and then it can show the data to application, it can show the data to other avatar, and all this data is encrypted for sure. Maybe later we can explain exactly how it is encrypted and everything, but it's an amazing technology, and I believe like we are kind of in crypto in 2010 right now. I believe in the next coming 5-10 years, we're going to talk a lot of decentralized digital identity because it's a very powerful technology, and that's why we are very focused on that. And in terms of the decentralized social metaverse, so it is owned by someone. So for sure now there is not a very strong technology about making decentralized applications that are running on decentralized nodes. So what I mean by that is we have seen, I believe, with Parler, for example, the social media that got banned with the Trump thing and everything, they could shut it down. Why? Because they have it on a server, and this server, they could shut it down. So we need to work a little bit, and we need to innovate a little bit more about decentralized storage to have programs or websites running on different nodes on a network. So when like if you don't have that, this kind of decentralized network, you always have a centralized component in
Yeah,
the
yeah,
in
you're
the
right.
system. So
I was talking to that point. I was talking to the owner of a television station, um, and and he was telling me that that AWS had contacted them and said, "We don't like 137 of your titles, your TV shows. If you don't remove them, then we are going to turn off your server access."
mhm. Yeah, that's how it works because Amazon is a public company that is in the US. They have
Mhm.
to follow the rules and everything. So, like, we would never have true decentralization on a metaverse if this metaverse is not running on kind of
Yeah, we
decentralized
need
nodes.
decentralized storage. We
For
absolutely
sure.
do need decentralized storage, and one of the things that we identified that in order for that to be successful in a widespread way, we can't have the same paradigm of having to replicate data on very expensive servers over and over and over again. So, how do we expand that footprint? And that's what we identified was through mathematical compression, a new compression technology that we are very, very excited about. That's far more efficient than any of the current types of lossy compressions. And the mathematical compressions are entirely lossless. So it's very exciting, and that's what we're also building as a decentralized storage. So I totally agree with you that that is a big gap right now. We'll never have true decentralization until we can have everything decentralized in our storage on the IPFS.
Exactly. Yeah, I feel this, and it's tough technology. It's not easy to develop this kind of technology. Like we know, for example, like for sure you don't want every node on the system to store the entire program. Like
Hmm.
it's not scalable. So we have sharding, we have other kind of techniques that we may use, and compression techniques that we may use. But I feel a lot of innovation has to happen here,
Yeah.
and we will see it in the next coming year for sure. I see a lot of crypto projects working on that. I think Internet Computer or this kind of project that are working on that. I don't know exactly how they are managing their work and how the product is, but for sure there is smart people working on that, and let's see how it goes on the next years.
So for your decentralized platform, is it EVM compatible, or did you guys build your own native chain on that?
Yeah, so right now, okay, so our we have two token actually. We want to separate the utility token from the governance
Hmm.
one because we don't want to mix this currency like in-game currency from the metaverse with other
Right.
kind of aspect of the company. So this token, we don't know exactly what is going to be deployed. We are looking a lot of solutions, but for sure you need to deploy it on a public blockchain, and you needed to deploy it on a high throughput, low fees blockchain, because if not, the user experience is going to be so bad. And these kind of requirements constrain a lot the system you are looking for. And at the end, Ethereum, it is not. There is no way with these gas fees to put this kind of token there. Uh, Even BSC or even this kind of chains has some things that we don't like. So we're still looking the best option. Probably
Have you looked at Polkadot?
Polkadot. We have started seeing their technology and everything, but I think we need 1, 2 more years to see everything if it's going to work there or not. I'm bullish on layer twos, actually optimistic rollups and CK rollups from Ethereum in the next coming years, being developed in layer two. So we may use this kind of platform after. We may use some custom blockchain that has some kind of decentralized component. I don't know. We are still figuring out the best way to deploy our token that is going to be in charge for the smart contract and the in-game currency token. So at the end, all the transaction that has value inside our metaverse will go through this public blockchain. So it is tough. It is a tough decision. We have been thinking a lot, but at the end, I don't know which one we're going to choose. Maybe we go and we build on Hedera Hashgraph. Maybe we build on Polygon. Maybe we build on other one. I don't know exactly right now. But
Yeah, yeah,
for sure, we need security, decentralization, high throughput, and low fees.
yeah, yeah. And those are the reasons why when we went through the same thing, because we deliver encryption and compression technologies and NFTs, we wanted high throughput and security, and we had to have our own encryption in it, which is one-time pad encryption that's quantum resistant. And the high throughput was critical, and concurrence. So concurrence meaning that you can have, for the viewers, many people doing things all at the same time, right? And really there are only a few that can really make that claim, which are really Solana and Polkadot. And Polkadot was the only one that allowed us to customize the chain, right, to change the encryption layers, et cetera. So these are all things that really matter, and I think are going to be very important for metaverse technologies as well. How many players can be involved all at once in this unique mixed reality world, and I think that's where this is likely to go as well. Let me ask you about economics. So, what are your thoughts on how there's going to be an economic system built up in these metaverses? And of course, security has to be paramount inside of this. But what are the types of things that you think would be, purchasable in this metaverse world?
Mm. So I think security is already managed by smart contracts in this kind of inside metaverse. So when you have these smart programmable contracts where you can define economic rules in it, you have already most of the security part of the economic side already covered. I mean, you have to make sure you don't lose your private keys and everything, but at least this economic aspect is managed by rules, is deterministic, and it is secure in a public blockchain that is immutable. So that's pretty good. And regarding actually the people who design the economic system, that's where I'm most interested, because I have been following a lot the play to earn games and their economy, actually, because it's pretty interesting how we can design an economy. I feel we only have done that once, and it's with the human race and with hundreds of years of development. So it is tough to develop a good economic system. Uh, I believe, for example, we are developing the economic system for our MST token, the utility token, and we are making sure that is the most automatic as possible. So all the regulation of the system are automatic when we can, and if not, for sure there is manual regulation. So if we feel, for example, that the input of the system, that means we are like a lot of MSTs are entering the system more than the value that is created with these MSTs, for example, and there is
Hmm.
a kind of high rate of inflation, for example, we need some mechanism to adjust that. And
Hmm.
we don't want to have a 2% daily inflation. For example, in Axie Infinity, I think they have like that 2% daily inflation. It is not sustainable, and your token will lose value against other tokens or against the dollar or against other kind of tokens, and your economy is going to crash. So you always need to monitor these kind of metrics, inflation, value creation, all these kind of metrics, and then you have to have mechanism to adjust that. For example, in Axie Infinity, that is a very famous play-to-earn game, they are changing constantly rules they are giving to the people there. For example, you can earn, instead of 90 SLP, you can earn 45 if you are on the top 1,000 ranking in the world, for example. So this is a technique to modify the rules of how economics are being deployed on the system. And you need, for sure, very quick feedback. And at the end, in the Earth, we have a very slow system of economics. We have every month or every year we have some kind of modification on the economics of a country or everything. But also the economy is slow. The transaction takes time. If you want to ship a product from China to Spain, let's say, it is 60 days. You do the payment, and you can start monetizing this payment when you sell the product, and that takes maybe 4 months, 5 months. But in the crypto ecosystem or the digital space, is so fast. So we have to adapt ourselves and checking, okay, a transaction just settle up in 3 seconds globally, and then I can extract value in 10 seconds of the transaction already, like this kind of investment or arbitrage opportunity, whatever. So we need really systems that are very fast in terms of adjustment and regulation. And it's very tough to design the system. At the end, we are helping us with mathematics for sure, and seeing which is the best system and which are the best rules to have on the economic side.
It's interesting, it's almost like the way that this is going to develop. One day you can almost see that there's probably going to be like a form of a digital central bank with its own liquidity measures. Maybe it's going to be AI driven. I don't know. But I'm guessing who's going to be the Janet Yellens and the Tim Geithners and the Goldman Sachs. Are going to be an entire economy inside of these metaverses. It's just mind-boggling to think about, and the amount of complexity, and it's almost, because the complexity is so high, you almost have to err on the side of decentralization. Otherwise, it's going to be impossible to manage all of it. You almost have to let the invisible hand of, going back to Adam Smith's form of economics, right, and the wealth of nations, almost have to go back to the invisible hand and let the invisible hand just sort of manage and run it by creating kind of free market systems inside of it. But it's a very intriguing question. I don't know the answer to these questions. I think that probably nobody does, but they're very interesting to think about, and they could have far-reaching impact on society at large, right? As these new worlds, new real estate models, new kinds of proof of work, mining activities, and all kinds of stuff that will be inside these worlds, right? Almost becoming like multiverses, right? Compared to our reality here. And at some stage, these places are going to become literally indistinguishable from reality.
Mm-hmm.
And then, if we ask Elon Musk, he'd probably say we're living in a metaverse right now, right? We just don't know it. So, but I appreciate you taking the time with me today, Alberto. Any final question you have for me?
Just at the end, how would you develop like this kind of economic system? So what you will take in account and everything.
Boy, that's a big question, and I have to admit it's not something I put a lot of thought into yet. I put more thought into how the technology could be enabled and how the compression can be enabled, and I'd love to spend some more time with you offline since you have kind of a mathematics background. I'd be happy to take you through it. And also, how it can be secured with incredibly strong encryption that is now practical, that can be used. But as far as the economies and how the governance will work within these systems, I'm assuming that they will have like decentralized governance, and that's one of the things that I find most promising about blockchain. I think the decentralized market and world can seem a little bit like chaotic, right? Just like I said, I gave my example of being at the ETH Denver conference, but it also fosters a high degree of entrepreneurship and sort of innovation, the pace of innovation. Everything is crowdsourced in that model. You can think of it like that. Literally everything, people find a need in their niche and they want to fill that need with their niche product or whatever the service is. And I think that is something that's more sustainable than something that's totally centralized. And the negative that we didn't talk about with centralization is the authoritarian and risk of despotism, right, within those kind of environments. And that's a place that we probably don't want to be returning to, because then you could have like whole fascist regimes inside of those kind of environments. And I think these are all going to be very, very interesting to navigate as we go forward and say, okay, is it going to be a model that can be self-sustainable and can grow on its own without too much control from society or from a centralized presence? And I think in general, that's kind of the way the earth has been set up, right? But then you could say, well, maybe if you believe in God, then there's probably someone who is a central authority who's kind of like architecting and creating all of it. And maybe, just like in the film Ready Player One, they hand you the keys at the very end and say, thanks for playing my game. And, it could be something along those lines. I don't know. I do believe that within the next 30 years, the technology will be absolutely indistinguishable from our real life world. And I think that those innovations are happening so quickly that we need to start thinking about all of these aspects to be at least in some way deliberate on how we put them together, so that we can avoid some of the pitfalls. As I said in the beginning of the call, no matter what you do, any new technology will always come along with it the negative aspects of that technology. There's no such thing. When someone says, oh, this is only a good thing and society is only going to benefit from this technology, that person cannot even see the negative aspects of that thing. And so we need to be able to see other perspectives and be able to still listen and hear other perspectives so that we can at least mitigate the risks. But then again, new technology has never been stopped just because of the negative aspects, because the positives are always equal to the negatives. So this is the nature of the way humanity has evolved, and
Sure.
how civilization has evolved and will continue likely to evolve. So I just think it's going to take some extra thoughtfulness, and we're going to have to start to become more of a world that's probably less judgmental and more accepting of concepts like invisible hands.
Mm-hmm.
And as Adam Smith talked about in his book, The Wealth of Nations. Thank you very much, Alberto. I look forward to talking with you again and continuing our discussion and really talking about some math too.
Thanks to you, Robert. Yeah, for sure, we can talk about encryptions, how your system works, how our system works, and everything. I'm pretty excited about that.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. So I'll look forward. We'll schedule it. But thanks very much to all our viewers. Have a wonderful day. Happy 2/22/22. All the best. Bye.
Bye.